Good evening, everyone. My name is Katy Parisi, and I'm the student body president here at HPU. And today I'm going to share with you my power of story. I want you to think about in the upcoming year how you will let God's love carry you, how you will reach out to carry others, and how sometimes you may need somebody to carry you. When I think of my relationship with faith, I can't help but think of my grandfather. My grandfather was a Methodist minister and he worked in many churches in California. One that I specifically remembered in Oxnard, California, where he spent all of my life. And that's where I really felt like the closest to my faith was with him in in the church that he was the minister at. And my grandfather in my life was not only a symbol of like love and faith, but also companionship and support. He was somebody that went above and beyond for everyone, but especially his children and his grandchildren. And when I was 11 years old, my parents went through a divorce, and as the youngest and the only girl, it was something that hit me a lot harder than it hit both of my older brothers. And I remember spending time with him and my grandma during our winter break when I was 11 years old. And one afternoon, I went over to the farmer's market with my grandfather. And usually, our relationship was somewhat fun and lighthearted. And it kind of became more than that day. He looked at me and really asked if I was doing okay, if he knew there was a lot going on, and he really wanted me to know that he was there for me. And that evening, we went back to his house, and he had an office upstairs, and it was right next to my room at my grandparents' house. And as a minister, I think his very, very favorite thing about the story of God and his relationship with God was the story of Noah's Ark. And I never understood why, but my grandpa Al had, I think, hundreds of Noah's Ark sets, figurines from all over the world, paintings, pictures, everything that you could ever think of Noah's Ark he had in his office. Like every single inch of his office was covered in Noah's Ark. And as I reflected and on his life and I prepared to tell my story of my relationship with him and my faith, I couldn't help but think of Noah's Ark. And I realized that he saw his ability to share the story of God as his ability to be ark for others. And we understand, and we may know that God gave Noah his safety, his family, and the animals safety because Noah listened to God and prayed to God. And they were able to be saved by the ark in the days of the massive flood. And whenever my grandfather told that story in church, he always told it with his grandchildren sitting right beside him. And I look back and I realize now that he wanted to be that ark for us. He wanted to be an ark for everyone, anyone who needed one. He wanted to be able to carry them through rough waters. But for us especially, there was just nothing in his world that related to his relationship with his grandchildren. And when I think about my faith and I think about how difficult my life was in that moment and my relationship to my grandfather, I realize now that he was my ark through that. And just as Noah loved God, I loved my grandfather. Their presence gave us this sense of safety. They gave us security and support in the times that we endured rough waters. So while I get to tell you about this, I really want you to think about how we grow as individuals, as a society, as an HPU family. And I think that that happens most when we are able to give and receive from others. I think I've always felt closest to my faith when I'm craving that feeling of companionship, because it's a place where I just don't feel alone anymore. And one day we may need to be an ark for someone, and other days, as hard as this is, we may need somebody to be an ark for us. So, as I wrap up my story, my power of story, I want to ask you in the upcoming year, how will you lend your support? How will you lend your love and care to those around you and who are a part of this HPU family? And are you willing to do that? But more importantly, are you willing to let God's love carry you through this uncertainty? Please think about this as I reflect on the relationship I had with my Grandpa Al, my arc. HPU family, thank you so much for listening to My Power of Story, and I'm so excited to join you all back on campus in just a few short weeks.